Thank you for tuning in to the Edelex podcast. We are an edtech whose mission is to surface learning outcomes, digital assets, and the power of individual achievement. Each episode features thought-provoking conversations with global technology leaders and educators, where we discuss how we can deliver better outcomes for 21st century learners.
So I'm delighted to have Dr. Naomi Boyer with us today. Naomi, thank you so much for being with us. Good morning, and it's your evening, but I guess we can say good day.
I'll say good day. I'm learning to say good day with my Australian partners.
You're doing really well. It's getting better every time you say it. Let me formally introduce you. Dr. Naomi Boyer is an educational strategist and innovative leader with Education Design Labs. She has over 20 years of education experience, and she's currently serving as the Executive Director for Digital Transformation, where she's focusing on the future of work catalysts of 21st century skills, digital micro-credentials, the learner-earner data ecosystem, and competency and skill frameworks. Her previous roles have included oversight of all college/university technology as Chief Information Officer. Now, this involved strategy and innovation, high-quality distance education, unique faculty technology professional development, talent pipeline development aligned to economic interests, global initiatives, and the creation and facilitation of continuing education. Dr. Boyer has both experience and expertise on competency-based education, leads many nonprofit boards, and maintains scholarship on self-directed learning. Naomi, thank you so much again for taking time out to talk with us today.
I'm absolutely honored to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
The pleasure. So to start off with, Naomi, I wonder if you would mind telling us more about Education Design Lab, really how it started, its mission, and your role within the organization.
The lab does really exciting work and is a lab. So we are a national boundary-spanning nonprofit that tackles really wicked problems alongside learner earners and our education and employer partners. We're identifying models that lead toward the future of work, and it's with an intentional equity lens that we co-design, test, and build prototypes to address the major issues of affordability, relevance, portability, flexibility, and really important for our conversation today is visibility. So the lab founder and now board chair, we've had some transitions. She was the CEO and president as well, Kathleen Delaski, originally was on a board with George Washington University and was amazed at all of the difficult issues that they were dealing with and the lack of institutional response to really quickly innovate, to be entrepreneurial, to solve the issues. So she, with a colleague, started up using human-centered design thinking as the basis for the conversation and for the methodology of the lab work, Education Design Lab. And some of the first issues that we kind of tackled were around the 21st century skills. So two early design challenges that the lab worked on were under these questions. We were trying to answer the questions. How might we capture and credential learning outside the classroom in ways that will be meaningful to employers? That was the first one. And then the second one, how might we demonstrate in different job markets that 21st century skill credentials have hiring value? Because we were hearing globally, and particularly in the United States, that employers would say, we can train for the technical content expertise, but it's these 21st century skills, or depending on what markets you're in, they might be called durable skills, transferable skills, essential skills, employability skills, power skills, human skills. I can keep going, right? And the one that no one really likes because it seems to demean it somewhat, the soft skills, right? But we call them the 21st century skills, but they're all the same thing. And as a result of this foundational work, over the past 8 years, the lab has co-designed. Notice that co-design piece is very much a part of being a lab and being a human-centered design thinking. And tested and scaled a 21st century skills framework that is employer informed. It's based with our higher education partners worked with us to design the framework itself. and learner earners. So learner earners are central to everything that we do. That framework includes 9 in-demand competencies: critical thinking, collaboration, creative problem solving, oral communication, resilience, intercultural fluency, empathy, initiative, and self-directed learning. Self-directed learning is the most recent one. We added that in January of this year. And as you heard Margo say, it's my passion. So I do research on self-directed learning and was really excited to bring that to the lab. Should I keep going, Margo, or you want me to come up for air?
I would love you to keep going, because you know that I can listen to you forever. But there are a couple of points in there that I think, certainly resonate in the Australian environment, and certainly international environment as well. I don't want to limit it just to an Australian lens. But that notion around skills visibility or competency visibility, and the equity piece, we've spoken about in the past where, that learner to earner journey or nexus kind of needs a reset, from, perhaps the degree being the proxy for hiring. Can you tell us a bit about, your work with new majority learners, which I understand, is part of your mission?
Absolutely. So the lab, central to what the lab do, is really focused on equity. How can we elevate and remove barriers for those that higher education really was not designed for? We know, and this is a statistic from the United States, 75% of the learners engaged in post-secondary education are not that 18 to 22-year-old living in the dorm. And in order to elevate learners of all different kinds, and particularly when you say the new majority learner, our systems were not designed for them. These are single moms. These are different. These are Black and brown individuals. These are folks who are living in poverty. These are veterans and people who are working 2 or 3 jobs and have families that they're supporting. The lab is targeting and focusing on bringing equity to them. And skills can be the currency that can do that, because when it's about what you know and can do, and rather than just a proxy of a credential, it helps to then elevate those who might not have had the opportunity to earn that credential. We're not saying that credentials don't matter. They do. But as part of the movement that we're talking about here is around skills-based hiring. So how even in our formal higher education programs can we better document the skills that someone has gained? We can say someone has a degree in business, but it doesn't mean they've necessarily mastered those skills. They may have flunked that exam that was the most important thing to that employer. So making sure we're capturing what someone really knows and can do will allow us to target and match up for the workplace. So our prototypes that we design at the lab are focused on elevating, empowering, and we believe it's a moral imperative to help learner earners or opportunity seekers have the value of their skills visibility in the marketplace.
If I had pom-poms, I would be shaking them right now. 100% agree with what you said. I also know that the lab has been doing some amazing projects, as you mentioned, that co-design element, around tackling some of these bigger issues. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about some of the projects that you have going on over there?
Oh, yeah, we've got some really exciting work. So what Margo didn't say in my introduction is I get to play in all the fun sandboxes. So I get to really dig in on issues that are weighty and, as I said earlier, wicked. These are wicked problems, but there's oh so much fun to unpack and try to really make a difference with. So the lab has a wide variety of projects along these lines, kind of looking at these things from different angles. And so I'm going to just give you some examples of that, and we can dig into any of them that might be of interest. So the first one is single mom success, which is really about co-designing with colleges transformational strategies. And that's kind of an important piece. A lot of what we do is talking about organizational transformation, which means it's deeper than any one product. It's not a technology. Folks, I'm not here to sell you anything. It's about really transforming organizations to really drastically improve completion rates for single mothers, for those who are caring for their children. And this is not just childcare services, right? This is much deeper. How can we make sure that single moms who do go back to school for post-secondary education are on academic pathways that are going to get them jobs, good paying jobs that will allow them to be better mothers as they continue on that pathway. So that's one of the projects that we have underway. Another project is called Bridges, our Bridges Rural. And this is really focused on rural communities and rural community colleges. And how can we look at a higher ed institution in a rural community to serve as a critical economic growth engine for their learners and their communities, to elevate in that community. Potentially, now that we have everyone who's working remotely, the great resignation, people necessarily don't want to come back to the office. How can we in those rural communities think about bringing those businesses that might allow for remote work as an economic engine to build economic vitality and quality of life for those rural communities? Another project, which is really growing by leaps and bounds in the United States, is called the Community College Growth Engine Fund. And this is leading the nation and their regions and creating micro pathways with employers. And what are micro pathways? They're co-designed with learners and employers. The micro pathways are defined as 2 or more stackable credentials, keeping them as 2 or more stackable credentials, including a 21st century skill micro-credential, and in some sort of industry content credential that are flexibly delivered to be achieved within less than a year and result in a job at or above the local median wage. They have to be workplace responsive, these micro pathways. And we're shocked that many of the colleges, rather than just having at least 2 of those credentials I talked about, are putting 3, 4, 5 industry certifications, as well as the 21st century skills. They're packaging those up in less than a year. So these are alternative opportunities. And then attached to that, we have another project called the Data Collaborative for Skills-Based Economy, where we're studying the labor and wage impact of these innovative models, whether we're talking about bridges or single moms or community or the micro pathways. How can we learn about what are the skills insights we can gain and learn about the impact for the learner earner as far as elevating their meaningful work as well as their wage, but the communities that they're serving as well. So we're getting into that side of things. And then a couple of projects we're working on with digital micro-credentialing. So Badge to Hire was built on the success from a project we had, Tee Up the Skills. And I think, Margo, you might have mentioned that the T profile. Well, the T profile is a tool where across the top of the T are those durable, ongoing skills. And I can send you a visual for this, but it's the skills that go on over time. They're durable. And the T's not our thought leadership. That's coming out of the 1990s. Down the base of the T are those skills that go more in depth. The others are cross-domain. They go over time, and there's more breadth to them. Down the base of the T, these are the technical skills and certifications that are required, and they change quickly over time, right? So we know technology shifts, and people need to adapt their skills to be able to stay conversant in whatever that job role is over time, and those go down the base of the T. So we've designed a tool to work with employers to gather what their ideal job role employee looks like to fill that need with the combination of those skills, right? And so Badge to Hire is all about how can we evaluate the value of 21st century skills micro-credentialing as a hiring signal for career readiness, particularly when we're talking about those who are underserved learners or those new majority learners. Just today, I was delivering a workshop with my colleague in Polk County School District, which I live in Polk County, Florida, where we're testing out the 21st century skills digital micro-credentials with high school students to see if 11th and 12th graders who receive the digital micro-credentials see a benefit on their resumes and the local businesses hire them, giving them skills even in high school, and to see whether this is viable in that environment. And I think XCredit might be really valuable to talk about here, Margo. You want me to mention XCredit?
I definitely want you to mention XCredit. Yeah. So please expand.
Okay. So XCredit is really exciting, I think, because if we're talking about changing the models, turning them upside down and thinking about it differently. XCredit is one of those projects that's definitely doing that. And it's about targeting and validating a learner's life and working experiences as currency for the future opportunities and the award of 21st century skills. Let me unpack that a little bit, because notice I said validating a learner's life. XCredit does not stand for academic credit, although colleges and universities could choose to give academic credit, sort of like a prior learning assessment for digital micro-credentials. But XCredit is about, what do I know and can do? How can I validate the skills that I have without going through a formal learning experience? Maybe I gained them in the military. Maybe I gained them through work experience and life and informal learning opportunities, right? So it's about validating a learner's life and working experiences. So the project includes multiple forms of validation and a full skills ecosystem, from skills recommendation to verified credentials and a learner wallet. So much like you all have on your immunization record, and you have your wallet that you can show your immunization and as a verified credential, we're working to build an ecosystem where the digital micro-credentials from this validation goes into a wallet and then can be deployed in the job marketplace and the talent marketplace. We're also developing auto-graded assessments that are scalable, rigorous, quality. So we're using technology for that to validate the 21st century skills. And there's a couple of different assessment tools that we're using to do that. One is in a simulation and a text-based format, because they're all performance-based. We're not talking about multiple choice bubble questions here. So we need to see these 21st century skills demonstrated. So we have these simulations. And then we're also using a technology that's an extended reality that allows for both. It can be done both on the Oculus and the desktop. But it's all about, and our first use case was really a military use case. What are the skills that you have, and how can you communicate those out in a way that's been verified and validated so that employers can say, oh, this person has shown and demonstrated that they have these skills, and they match up with the skills that I've listed in my job descriptions to put them to put it together. So those are just a few streams of work. We have multiple cohorts, iterations, and products that have emerged from the work. So I can probably go on for a long time. I'm sorry, I probably talked too much there, Margo.
Absolutely not. Blows my mind that the lab, has, in a relatively short period of time, doing so many different projects with such great impact. Like I'm blown away by the scope of what you're doing and what you're achieving. In my head, though, and I know it's probably the question that people watching this will say, is like, how can we leverage what you're doing, to really be able to do similar projects? Like, what tools, what resources, how could we also do it in our environment as well?
So everything, all of the design, we're a lab, right? So we're experimenting. This is why I say it's fun stuff. We're trying things. It doesn't all work. And we don't go into our challenges or our projects with all of the answers. We do not have all of the answers. But just about everything we're doing could be scaled and shared with the Australian, market and my colleagues there. I have great friends like you, Margo, that are living halfway across the world, and we know that we find time and manage to make it work with our distances and our time changes. But the work that we do, scalability happens to be one of our design criteria that we adhere to. The issues would be for your audience as to how much of it relates to what they know in their world and their context, and thinking about how we take our lens. My lens is very US driven. And as much as I try not to be egocentric, it is very common for us as Americans to be such. So I think we'd have to play and try. And I think most of these projects that I'm talking about could have relevance if some of the same challenges, if you're facing some of the same challenges in New Zealand and Australia.
And I know we are, right? So that was hence part of why I asked that question. The project around rural communities and the Bridges project, we've got the same geographical challenges here, right? We are a big country with, very sparse population, but the education opportunities in rural areas are limited. And so, I see enormous potential around a lot of the projects that you've got started. For us, it's also around military and transition and taking not just military, but even, the non-formal education experiences and being able to represent and recognize those as well. So, yeah, I see a lot of similarities, whilst, culturally there will be differences. But at the base, we have the same issues, we have the same challenges, just on a little bit small scale, right? So, I think the work that you and the lab are doing is phenomenal. I always have. And, I really wanted an opportunity for people to understand that, and to hear about it. So thank you so much for taking the time, to really unpack those for us today.
If you were mentioning rural, Margo, I think COVID has been so disastrous and difficult, and it's been a terrible thing for so many. But I'm hoping one of the positive things that might emerge is that the lack of infrastructure, internet infrastructure, in many of those rural communities that were otherwise unserved, I'm hoping globally that we're able to increase the access to broadband and to other technologies, because in order for many of these things to really roll out in a way that's going to impact those communities the most, they've got to have access, and we've got to figure out ways to mitigate the digital divide and the technical limitations. The travel becomes onerous and very difficult to get individuals that either don't have transportation, or it's so far to get there, or the services are not provided. We've got to optimize the technology to help the human, advancement along in this movement.
Yeah, 100%. And I might just take that point as well. A lot of the things that you've been speaking about today, there is kind of a yin and a yang, isn't there? The movement around skills kind of has to be underpinned by their digital enablement. So you mentioned a few things today: digital wallets, even the alternative reality content that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, your view around the skills ecosystem and the requirements for technology enablement to underpin that?
Yeah, really, really great question. So the lab, and I'm going to say I'm completely invested in this philosophy, believes that the ability for an individual to have visibility into career trajectories and be able to capitalize on making their own skills, what they know and can do, visible, that's really important, visible to the talent marketplace, is a moral imperative, right? That drives us. So by not facilitating this effort, we then support the previous standard of a degree pedigree and social networks that will reign over and provide the basis, rather than truly empowering opportunity seekers to be able to showcase, again, what they know and they can do, which makes them eligible for job roles that match their skills. So I believe there's like 6 steps to enhancing an individual's digital discoverability, and some of this moves into the technological. So, but it moves us closer to a connected skills ecosystem. That's a really important point, is the interconnectedness. So job roles and academic programs need to identify associated competencies rather than just learning outcomes, right? Or job functions. It's human work to do this. This is a human element, not a technological element. Yeah. There are some technologies out there now to help, some templates, but essentially employers and academic institutions need to associate their programs with competencies, because it comes down to, and when I've been using skills and competencies, I've been using them interrelated. Competencies have skills, knowledge, skills, and abilities, dispositions, multiple areas. Skills are more, can be more behavioral and specific, but we've seen in just normal nomenclature, they start to merge together. So that's human work, the first step I said. The second one is the compilation of these competencies into an open digital competency frameworks and open skills. Examples of this would be CTID, which is a credential engine standard, CASE, which is one ed tech. There are others. There's frameworks, rich skills descriptors are around skills, but having a open schema to talk about these competency frameworks allows information to be shared across organizations and departments and technologies. Okay, so this is human work to compile them, but is facilitated by technological tools. The adoption of a standard, the utilization of technology systems to be able to compile those competencies into open digital competency frameworks. Okay, so the third piece, we now have to take all these competencies and these frameworks and the skills and link them in the learning experience or the earning experience. So whether that's through an upskilling and linking of those skills into a job role, or whether it's as part of a master's program or a technical program, we now need to link all of those things together into the learning experience and tying the skills and intentionally communicating to the individual what is being learned, how it is being assessed, and what is being accomplished is key. So this could engage technology systems like learning management systems, student information systems, HR training systems, development and advancement, employer systems, and transcription systems and portfolio systems. But these are how the technologies we can use to start to connect those pieces to the learning experience or the achievement experience through the workplace as well. There's three more steps, and I'll try to go as quickly as possible. So the fourth one is the rests solely on the organization. This is the last one that are organization focused, because then we're going to move into the learner focus, and it's the documentation of the achievement. And so this can be done through digital micro-credentials. We talked about the 21st century skills, digital micro-credentials. There's tools called comprehensive learner records or learner employment records are means of transcribing those skills into a formal record that can capture, validate, and verify what that individual has achieved. From there, those were all 1 through 4 are really the responsibility, the onus is on the organization. When we get to 5 and 6, we're in the space in the skills ecosystem that begins to shift to the learner-earner. This is the collection and the skills gained across job roles, learning organizations, credentials types, and personal assertions. What I say I know and can I do, maybe it's not verified. But that's where that's where those terms I was using earlier about learning wallets and other tools for cataloging and disseminating the compilation of the best of who I am, so that I can put it together and this is another kind of vocabulary term out there, self-sovereignty. I'm in charge. I have agency over what I know and can do, and I can share it with others that I choose to in the job talent marketplace and specifically with employers. So that then we start to shift over to the individual who has responsibility in this space, but there's technological systems underneath that are facilitating that human agency. And then we get to the last piece, which really isn't the last piece, but this is the resume of the future comes in that will allow every individual to showcase the best me in the talent marketplace and to use that directly as a signal with employers to either find me or for me to send it out. And ultimately, this final step in the process, or in the skills ecosystem that's emerging, leads to what we have to tackle. And I don't think we're there yet, but I'm jumping in. I want to deal with this one too. This is going to be my next project. It's called Last Mile to Hire. How do we get it out of my skills records, showcasing the best me, into those employer records so that we can traverse it, and or for upskilling and internal mobility and advancement within an organization? Those are the 6 steps.
Amazing. I was going to ask you as a final question, what would be your advice, if you had the magic wand, but I think actually your explanation around the 6 steps has way more clarity, way more utility for us to take that on board. Naomi, you're amazing. Thank you so much. I don't think there's a better place to end than that. And I really look forward to everything that Education Design Lab is going to be doing now and into the future. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. Appreciate it.
Really, really honored to be here and delighted. And, I think partnerships like the partnership we have with Edelex and the Bean Center are going to be essential for us to really not just to do this in our own local environments, but to start to elevate skills across the globe.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Naomi.
Thank you, Margo.
Thanks for tuning in to this Edelex podcast episode. Don't forget to follow us in your podcast app so you don't miss a thing. And be sure to visit our website at edelex.com to learn more.